You want me to put a screen up?
I forgot my camera.
Okay, I'm going to give people a few minutes to find us this morning because we went live a little bit differently than we normally do. So you guys that are in the room, maybe Sherry, if you check or others can check. It looks like people are finding us, but we'll give them a couple of seconds. So normally in our studio in the United Israel Center, people have a chance to get on, and Dave runs a commercial. And so I'll say, before I get started, I'll say for those that are finding us now, that the echo that you hear is perfect video quality and audio quality to what you hear inside the building. We'll work on the audio and the quality of that sort of thing next week. We'll talk about that too. So, okay. Shabbat Shalom and welcome to United Israel World Union's Sabbath morning service, coming to you live from the historic Temple Sinai Synagogue in St. Francisville, Louisiana, thanks to an agreement that was worked out with the Julius Freyhan Foundation and the local historical society, particularly Miss Helen. So we're very appreciative for that agreement, and perhaps later I'll let John Langberg tell a little story about how that went down. So John, if you didn't prepare for this morning, you're in trouble. So, but anyway, welcome. Welcome to our online members of the Synagogue Without Walls. You guys remember that? So what we did, we used to have services in here, and those who joined us from all around the world, we called the Synagogue Without Walls, meaning we have a synagogue, you're part of our synagogue, but even though it's represented by this beautiful place, it somewhat, in some ways, has no walls because we reach literally around the world. I did want to start this morning. I think it is fitting on this day and in this place to open with a Jewish prayer. A prayer that many of you know. It's called Shehekianu. So if you know it, you can say it, and if you don't know it, I'll post it, because it's quite a remarkable prayer. We know it's written of in the Talmud, so we're talking at least 1,500 years, and it's typically said when something unusual happens, or you experience something pleasurable or desirable for the first time, or if you're doing something that you haven't done in some time. And it goes like this in Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehekianu, v'ki'imanu, v'higianu, lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Lord, our God, King of the universe, who has granted us life, sustained us, and enabled us to reach this occasion. And so for me, it's very important that we give credit to the King of the universe for bringing us back into this holy place. I think we belong here. And I would almost say that I am very humbled and pleased that heaven thinks we belong here as well, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. I'm honored to address all of you today, as Moses put it, those standing with us today and those who are not with us today. So whether you're in the pews or whether you're listening from another state in the United States or another country, you are welcome. In fact, all are welcome in this place. Today in I guess, honor of this occasion, I wanted to talk to you about a return to Sinai. A return to Sinai. December the 7th, 2005, I was given a key to this building. Some of you have heard this story. In fact, Jonah Vandor and I did a recording this week. You can listen to that on Israel on My Mind, which is a show that Jonah and I do for Israel News Talk Radio, where I tell the story leading up to how did I get a key to Temple Sinai Synagogue. I mean, it's a pretty good story, I think. So I told that story. But I just wanted to pick up and let you know that December the 7th, 2005, I was given a key to this building, and we were in this building, as I put it, preaching Moses every Sabbath for about 5.5 years. In June of 2011, we were asked to leave because this place received a very gracious gift to restore it. And over a period of about 7 months, culminating in December of 2012, this building was restored to the beautiful state that it's in now. So in some ways, we have returned, ladies and gentlemen, from an exile. 88 months. And I was reminded last night, I came back up here, and Lamentations 1. Lamentations is a tough book to read. It's talking about the city of Jerusalem, but I couldn't help but feel about this place, how lonely she sat like a widow. It doesn't mean that it wasn't used for community purposes, and those things can be wonderful. And we're pleased that that happens. But I'm talking about this place hearing Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, the Hebrew. You see, this place was built for a very special reason. It was built by a very special group of people who longed to have a place where the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob could be praised, and a place where people could learn of his ways. So I ask you a question. Why now after 88 months? Why now? How did it happen that today, of all days, we find ourselves back in this place? Perhaps, and I pray this to be the case, we've been given another opportunity to realize a vision that built this place. To realize a vision that was in the mind and in the heart of those Jewish people who built this building and dedicated it more than 116 years ago. Look with me to the prophet Habakkuk. I want to go to Habakkuk chapter 2. Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 2. And it says, "Write the vision, make it plain upon tablets, that he who reads may run. For there is still a vision for an appointed time, and it speaks concerning the end, and it doesn't lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not delay." prophet Habakkuk says that it's important that the vision be written down plainly so that one who reads it can move forward with it. And even though the manifestation of that vision doesn't take place immediately, wait for it. Wait for it, because it doesn't lie, it will come to pass. Now, I'm not sure if those who had this vision 116 years ago would consider this a timely fulfillment. But the ideas that they had were beautiful. The ideas that they had were written down, and we can run with it. I can't help but wonder if someone in that original visionary group didn't get a glimpse of what's going on. Of course, they couldn't have imagined the technology. They couldn't have imagined that this day people are listening to me speak from this place all over the world. I remember my grandmother, before she passed, she just would describe how it was unbelievable what the world had come to just in her lifetime. When this vision for this place was conceived, they didn't have television. It certainly didn't have computers or technology like we have, but today, the vision that they had can take on a new power and a new sense of fulfillment. They couldn't have seen you sitting in your homes all around the world listening to me this morning, but thankfully they did record the vision. So I want to tell you a little bit about that vision, and I want to enlist you to join us in bringing this vision to pass. March 22nd, 1903. The people of the town came to this place. It was teeming with activity, filled to the max. And they had a dedication of this house, and that's what I want to share with you today. It was recorded and published the following week on March the 28th, 1903, in a paper called The True Democrat. And we have these records, I have these records because of a local author by the name of Ann Butler. Ann wrote a book about a very generous family. A family by the name of Freyhan. The Freyhan Foundation, which has graciously allowed us to use this building, they're representing this original, the philanthropy of this family, the Freyhans. The book is called 3 Generous Generations. And so I'll be quoting from Ann Butler's very helpful book, 3 Generous Generations. So, if you will, I want to read to you the dedication of Temple Sinai from the True Democrat, March 28, 1903. The event par excellence of the week has been the dedicatory service on Sunday last of the house of worship recently built by Hebrew citizens. The sacred building was filled prior to the hour for the services by a large congregation composed of both Jews and Gentiles. It was an hour of rejoicing, and Christian friends, fully sympathetic, rejoiced too. The time of waiting was agreeably passed by comments on the beauty of the synagogue. It's a 35 by 50 foot in length, with a high ceiling and many large stained glass windows, giving abundant light and ventilation. The acoustics of the building is perfect. I'm going to pause, so if you're complaining about the echo, check yourself. Joking. The interior walls are painted white. The trimmings, furnishings of the altar and the choir gallery are of quarter-sawed oak. You that are here today are sitting in those original pews. I am speaking to you from the original pulpit. The exterior talks about how it's painted. The service on March 22nd, 1903 began sharply at 3 p.m. There was organ music, prayers by various rabbis, one of which was Shehekianu. So I wanted to pray Shehekianu to connect with that original dedication. We were talking before the service. We're going to do an official dedication. Make a big deal, invite people from all over in, some of our Jewish friends, hopefully some of my rabbi friends that can come in. But in a way, this is a small entry back in. It's quiet. It was orchestrated above our head. We couldn't have made this happen. After the Shehekianu, the reading of Genesis chapter 1. Now I want to tell you something pretty interesting. In case you think this is just a coincidence, because I don't. So, we just came out of a tent. You just came out of a tent. We were in the festival of Sukkot. We had people come in from all over. Many of you came from long distances. We had people from Canada and all over the United States, and we had a wonderful time together. Well, as things were winding down, we came up here last Sunday. And we walked into this place, and it was just incredible. Like I couldn't contain my emotions. Perhaps I felt like, why are we not here? We talked about it. We said, this is what we said in small discussions. Maybe we could use the building for all the other things that we do. It's a community center. We have Bible studies. We teach Hebrew there. We have festivals. We entertain people. We have parties during the festival seasons. I record 3 shows a week there. We have a nice kitchen. And I thought it's just not practical. To me, to move back here, what would we do? We have all the furniture. We can't bring the furniture here. So we thought, we kind of have to stay where we're at. And it's not like we have enough money to rent 2 places. So it would be nice. But you know what we all said? It'd have to be a miracle. Because we can't work it out. We need both. We need what we have for the functionality at the United Israel Center. And we really need this place. So Dr. Tabor made the comment. He said, but maybe you could just use it on the Sabbath or something, teach from there. And then you do all the other stuff at the building. He said, I agree you need both places, but maybe I said, I don't know the technology. You know, the technology would have to get internet here as well as there. It'd be nice. Now, I'm usually not the negative person. You know, I'm very optimistic. I'm optimistic when everybody around me's falling to pieces. But the practicality of it didn't make sense. So we went back to the building, and I said, you know, it'd be nice if everyone was still here. Simchat Torah is this week. We could maybe do something. And many of you met Amy Johnson and Cam were here. And Amy said, Ross, can we get the Torah scroll out of the cabinet? And I said, yeah, let's do that. So we get our beautiful Torah scroll out of the cabinet. We put it there on the table. And people were walking around looking at it. And I began to tell the story of the Torah scroll. And I was telling people the history of the scroll. You know, it's from 1898. It was given to United Israel. And I told Amy, I said, Amy, in the cabinet, there's a document that was written by Ralph Bunton. Our executive vice president is, as you know, a very talented writer. He's published a book on the Book of David, and he and Dr. Tabor presented to the United Israel Center South this beautiful Torah scroll at our dedication in October of 2016. And Ralph had written an article on this Torah scroll. And the article was called The Strange Saga of Eddie Abrams. And I told Amy, I said, Amy, get that piece of paper out of the cabinet. You know, if you want to read it, if anybody wants to read it. You know, it was like the whole story's there. But I'll tell it to you. So I'm telling the story. And then Amy said, listen to the first paragraph of this. She said, when the West Olive, Michigan congregation of United Israel World Union dedicated their new community center on the 7th day of Sukkot, October the 17th, 1965, the group received a most treasured gift, a rare Indian Torah scroll encased in a beautifully ornamented silver container. The Torah was of Sephardic style and dated 1898, Calcutta, India. Now, what made that remarkable is that here we were looking at that scroll and hearing those words on the 7th day of Sukkot. 54 years later, to the day, that Torah scroll was pulled out of the cabinet, and we were talking about how now it belonged to us. Now, I want you to understand, we had been in Temple Sinai. Now we're looking at the United Israel Torah scroll, and this thought hit me. This Saturday, today, the Torah cycle of readings begins again. What perfect timing! What a coincidence! If you believe in coincidence. Or could it be providential? Could these be signs? Could something be put before us as if to say, I'm watching, I'm observing? You know, timing, everything about timing. Think about what I read in Habakkuk. The vision is for an appointed time. Though it tarry, wait for it. Today, around around the world, in synagogues across the land, around the world. Congregations seated and listening as you are will hear Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz v'haaretz hayta tohu v'vohu v'choshek al panei tachon v'ruach Elohim arakefet al panei hamayim v'yomer Elohim yehi or v'yehi or v'yar Elohim et ha'or ki tov v'yabdel Elohim vein ha'or uvein ha'choshek v'yikra Elohim la'or yom u'lachoshek kara la'yela v'yehi erev v'yehi boker Yom Echad. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And a wind from God, or the Spirit, the Ruach Elohim, moved over the surface of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that the light was good. And God separated the light from the darkness. And God called to the light day. And to the darkness he called night. There was evening and there was morning one day. This particular Torah portion for today, Genesis chapter 1:1 through 6:8, describes the beginnings, Bereshit, in getting started. Every year, following the annual cycle of Torah readings, the children of Israel have faithfully, for a couple of thousand years, followed the cycle of readings, beginning in Genesis 1, working their way through. And it culminates with Deuteronomy chapter 34 in verse 12. And they begin again. And they read through the story, through the narratives, through the poetry, learning the laws and the ways of God. And then they begin again. As we come out of the tent of Sukkot, reminding us of the time in the wilderness, and we enter into this holy place, I believe it is sort of a new beginning. I can't help but think about new beginnings as I stand here today. Now, Rabbi Heller, on March 22nd, 1903, read what I read. His Hebrew is probably more eloquent. Perhaps he has less of an accent, a southern Louisiana accent. After the reading from the Torah back on that day of dedication, several speakers got up. Each of these people planted seeds, if you will, that we now should watch after, water, and cause to grow. Reverend Lewis Tucker. That's right. The rector of Grace Church. So a Christian minister on a dedication of the synagogue gave an address that's described in the True Democrat as an excellent one. He commented on the fact that for 150 years, Israelites had been here in St. Francisville. Now, do the math. 1903, 150 years puts us in 1750s. They had long wished for a house of worship all those years. These had passed away in their day with their desires unfulfilled, and now the present generation had received the blessing. His prayer, this is the Reverend Lewis Tucker from Grace Church, prayed these words: that the grace of God should descend on this house and its people, and many now and in years to come might learn the ways of righteousness and the paths of peace through its influence as a house of worship. So Reverend Tucker said that this house would be influential in teaching people the ways of righteousness and the paths of peace. And how are they going to do that? Well, according to the Right Reverend, it's only going to happen if the grace of God descends on this place and the people who sit in it. And then Judge Golson comes up, the Honorable Judge Golson. He made a short but eloquent address in which he congratulated the people on the success of their efforts and referred to the power for good it would be in this community. He's talking about this place. He referred to the sympathy existing between Anglo-Saxon and Jew, and he mentioned, Judge Golson mentioned, that there was a theory that the Anglo-Saxons were descended from the lost tribes of Israel. So in 1903, the lost tribes of Israel were mentioned in this place. And then it says, but be that as it may. In other words, if not, there's still no doubt that these people can come together. And then the concluding address was made by Judge Samuel Lawrison, who made one of his very best talks on this occasion. It was on the influence of environment. And he used the illustration of trees rightly sown and rooted, but which were warped out of shape by adverse circumstance from the time of early growth. From this, he gracefully argued the importance of this temple in producing a right environment for the youth of Hebrew faith. Think about that. Grace descends, proclaim the ways of righteousness, the paths of peace, the power for good, the lost tribes of Israel, a right environment for the Hebrew youth, or youth of the Hebrew faith. I think that's an interesting way to put it. Not the Hebrew youth, it says youth of Hebrew faith. What if this place could reach young people around the world and inspire them towards Hebrew faith, regardless of their ethnicity, their origin? What if they were moved to accept the Hebrew faith? On October the 24th, 2019, I'm going to let John tell the story in a couple of moments briefly, but I'll just mention he got up and went and talked to people at the Historical Society. Now, I'll be honest, he probably knew this. If he would have come talk to me first, I'd have probably said, nah, let's hold up. I think he knew that. So he just went to talk to him. So he came to the building and he said, guess what? I think we're going to be going back in Temple Sinai. So turns out he was right. and we got the key. Now, when the key for this place was originally presented on March 22nd, 1903, two little girls, members of the Hebrew congregation, gave a poem. And here is the poem. The task is done, the temple stands, a masterwork from master hands, a monument of stately grace and honor to our faith and race. The doors are open and our hearts to all the joy our faith imparts. Here may we seek for truth divine, to nobler aims and higher hopes. Here may we all in concord dwell and spread the fame of Israel. Beautiful little poem. Sort of charts out some of the things we ought to work on. And then there was a dedication sermon. Dr. Heller, who had previously read from Genesis, gave the following. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwellings, O Israel, and I, through the abundance of your mercy, enter thy house. It's interesting. This particular passage comes from the words of Bilam, who was hired by Balak to curse Israel. But as you know, instead of cursing, he ended up blessing Israel. And one of the things that he saw says that he looked out over the children of Israel as they camped in their tents, and he said, Ma tovu ohaleka Yaakov, mishkanoteka Yisrael. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwellings, O Israel. Dr. Heller sketched briefly the history of the Jewish synagogue, which was successively tent, temple, and house, as represented by the tabernacle of the wilderness, the temple on Moriah, and the synagogue of the Middle Ages, the highest, a God home and a heart home in which all the loftiest instincts of man's likeness to God find satisfying exercise. The eloquent rabbi closed with a prayer that the newly consecrated synagogue might become a God home, dedicated not by any breath of mouth or act of hand, but made holy by the impressive associations and sacred rites of many a memorable hour. You know, a building, a space, can be holy. But what makes a space holy? A space is made holy when people connect with one another and to God. It's not enough to just connect with one another, though that is very good. In this week's Torah portion, we learn right away that it is lo tov. It's not good for man to be alone. We need other people. When I think of this space as holy, I'm thinking beyond the walls. Look, you can put me anywhere and I'll teach the Bible. I've said this. I mean, for 88 months, we've taught in other places. In fact, today is the day in 2013 where we moved from our little place to to the building that we're in now. And today we're in this space dedicated by Hebrew congregation in 1903, and I love it. But if I move tomorrow, you see, this sacred place is where we connect with one another and with God. Wherever you are sitting and listening to my voice, you are part of this holy place. We're connecting with one another and we're connecting with God. Now, I love that their vision of this place was to teach the paths of righteousness and peace. And like I said, they could never have imagined that people in China, people in the Orient, people in the Middle East, we have people listening from Iran, Australia, Temple Sinai would have a short lifespan. I want you to listen to this. I want you to really understand that the vision was merely planted and left. 1903, this place is dedicated. Listen. By 1904, many of the original congregation had either died or moved to New Orleans. 1 year. The remaining group was small and no longer had the services of a rabbi. Public worship was led by a lay leader, Ben Leopold. Thank you, Ben, for picking that up. Then in 1921, this building was sold to the Presbyterians. The Presbyterians would enjoy it for most of the 20th century until its roles also declined and most of those members joined the Methodist Church. I can't help but think that words, particularly words that were spoken on the lips in the prayers of the men and women who built this place, I cannot help but think that they reached the heavens. See, the vision of and for this place remain to see their ultimate fulfillment. In less than a year, they just built it. Like an artist whose genius is not recognized until he or she is long gone. Like a tree planted by one whose shade is not realized until generations have passed. So too was the vision of that original Hebrew congregation. Perhaps we are here for such a time as this, and such a task as this. If not us, who? If not now, when? You know, you think about everything that's transpired here. When we first held services here, we did a lot of work on the building. I mean, we came in and there was green shag carpet. The pews weren't even here. They were being used in a governmental building. And we helped put this place back together. I found this pulpit in the back covered in junk. I remember almost breaking my neck climbing through the junk to get it out of a back room. Now that's been torn down. And so I've always felt like these wonderful people in our town who work so hard, the Julius Freyhan Foundation, the Historical Society, and all those people who joined together with one goal. You know what their goal was? Let's restore this place. Let's restore it physically. And they did a fantastic job. They hired a wonderful architectural firm who came in and they made great repairs on the structure. They've installed modern, beautiful modern lighting. They pulled off a ceiling tile that covered this beautiful beaded board. They designed a very modern back to the building, which was formerly, when we were here, it was just like a shack that was nailed to the back of it from the 50s. The church had built, you know. But now it's beautiful. It's modern. When we left here in June of 2011, I left something on the door. Like, I didn't make a single effort in all these 88 months to go talk to anybody. All I did was pray and said, in your time. In your time. And I remember walking to that door as we were leaving, and I pulled the mezuzah out of the casing. Glenn Chatterton made that casing. I needed somebody to make a casing because I had a beautiful marble mezuzah that I bought in Israel. Actually, Brian and Beth bought that mezuzah. I want to make sure we give credit to all our friends who were part of this place. And we needed a way to put it in, attach it to the door. So we used Velcro and glue and stick. And I remember pulling it off of there thinking, I look forward to putting it back. So I moved it, and we haven't put it back. But when we do our dedication, we're going to put this back. This particular place has seen many people learn of the ways of righteousness. It was in this building for the first time that I asked Dave, is there a way we can record these, you know? And Dave said, yeah. I mean, we could make a file. And I said, well, just tell me what we need. And we bought a little MP3 recorder, and I hung it around my neck. And I'd record it, and then at the end of the service, I'd take it off, and Dave would take it home and upload it on the internet. That's the way we started. And it was in here that we first learned that we could go live on audio. We did audio first. And it was in here that we first saw that we had somebody listen. I remember we were excited. It was one person. Somebody listened. That was Stephen, wasn't it? In Canada, I think. How did he find us? I don't know. But then it was in here that we began to reach more and more people. What was planted here in this place has only grown. And meanwhile, this place sat alone like a widow. But now I see an opportunity to bring back into this house a thriving plant that's been nurtured and watered by heaven. More people know of the work that we're doing with God's help. So the vision of this place that was originally seen. And I love it. Jews and Gentiles were together. As Reverend Tucker prayed, I would also pray that the grace of God would descend on this house and these people. Not just those here, but those who are listening from all over the world. And that people all over the world will learn the ways of righteousness and the paths of peace because of this place's influence as a house of worship. I want to reach the ends of the earth from right here. I'll do it from anywhere. God knows that. I can do it from a phone booth. I can do it from the desert with God's help. But from this house, I would pray that from this day forward, that the Torah's words and the prophets' words and the writings' words, the words of the Tanakh would go forth from one end of heaven to the other, from the rising of the sun and to its setting, and that people would hear Yehovah Hu HaElohim, that Jehovah is God. He is one and his name one. And that the ways of righteousness and the paths of peace would go forth from this place. Isaiah 56 talks about the ideal house. It's called a house of prayer for all people. Not some, not a bunch, not many. All. All the people. Isaiah's describing another place, but I see the same for this place. No one's excluded. When people come into this place, they might be in all sorts of places spiritually. And you know what? They're welcome here. And you will make them welcome as well. When people come in, they will hear a message that goes through the ear and into the heart. Our job is simply not to mess that up. So we have open doors for people who are seeking. Judge Golson talked about the power for good that this house could be. The good right judge also mentioned the lost tribes of Israel. Who knows? Perhaps from here, people who don't know that they are actually descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob might be turned towards the Hebrew faith. Who knows? And as Samuel Lawrison put it, or as the article said, he gracefully argued that it was important for this temple to produce an environment, a right environment for the youth of Hebrew faith. Man, may that be so. What if from this house people learn the ways of justice and righteousness, the paths of peace? They felt the Spirit of God when they walked in here. And what if there were things for the young people who could attach to the Hebrew faith? We have to think about the young people. Who is the next generation who will teach this? Who are the believers? Look, there are plenty of skeptics. There are plenty of agnostics. There are plenty of people who are struggling with what they believe. I'm praying that God would show me who is that young man or young woman who believes this book, who can teach it with passion. I don't know where they are. He does. We collectively have a great work ahead of us. It isn't for the weak. This requires people who are dedicated. Who among you who hears me speak can catch this vision? Who would say, Hineni, send me, I'll help? We don't need to know what the help looks like yet. We don't know what we need until we get into it. But if you feel that you can attach to this vision, if you feel like you're part of the synagogue without walls, then you're part of it. You don't have to sign anything. You want to be in, you're in. We need help. We need workers. We need people who will participate in bringing this vision to pass. And with God's help, we will definitely bring this vision to pass. So having the keys once more, I'm going to read once again that poem that was read or recited on March 22nd, 1903. The task is done, the temple stands, a masterwork from master hands, a monument of stately grace and honor to our faith and race. The doors are open and our hearts to all the joy our faith imparts. Here may we seek for truth divine to nobler aims and higher hopes. Here may we all in concord dwell and spread the fame of Israel. And let us not forget that from this place, the most important message that we can share, that we must share, is about the one true God and His ways. No greater message. There's really no other message. It's all about God. Now, I wanted to let John tell the story about how we ended up in here with the keys. So, John, you want to take a minute or two? You have to tell him that. He'll preach for us. No. Tell us how this happened.
I've known Russ for a long time. One of the things that Russ doesn't know is that 40 years ago, I was dating a young lady at Mississippi State University that I've been married to for 38 years. And I was taking a course in public speaking because they felt engineers needed to be able to stand up and talk. One of the things was on impromptu speeches.
There you go.
Thank you for that. I told Dave before we started out on the front porch that and he agreed, that we're all kind of in whiplash. I don't know how to say this, it happened. Okay? God decided this. It wasn't, anybody's particular effort. I'm almost at a loss for words. That course didn't help me much for blessings of this nature by the Almighty. So we had those conversations. I missed out on some of them, but when we were here on that Sunday, the last Sunday during Sukkot, Dave and I talked after everybody went for a tour on what would it take for us to do communications in here. And there was nothing about getting back in. It was like just what would, academically speaking. So when everybody left, and I got some personal things done. I woke up Wednesday morning, and I don't know how to describe this. It wasn't a plan that I had. I was implored, if you will. I was driven to go to the Historic Society and talk to them. And I had the opportunity to sit down with a very nice lady, Helen, at the Historic Society, and talk to her for about an hour. And the topic was about us with United Israel, and me personally, and her background. And one thing led to another, and she said that she would contact the board, and one of the members of the board works with the Freyhan Foundation, and see what they thought and she suggested, a nominal fee, and I said, well, that would be totally acceptable with us. And so it was like, well, we'll see what happens. Okay. So I went home and was doing some things around the house, and I told Ross, I went by to see Ross and said, this is what I've done. And he was like, well, okay. It was like, we'll see. I think he was a little skeptical. And so I was at home, and a couple hours later, Helen called and said, the board has accepted your offer. And I said, well, I can bring you a check in the morning. She said, well, do you really want to get in there that fast? And I said, yes. And we'd love to get started. And so I called Ross and told him, and went by and saw him, and I could hardly contain myself. I mean, it's just, it happened. It just happened. And I was all choked up about it, and so was Ross. And so I went by the next morning, and Helen said, this must be, it's got to be the hand of God, because we just had these keys made up 2 days ago. And so she gave me these brand new keys. She said, I would suggest you go over to the temple and see if they work. So when I left, I immediately came over here and made sure the keys work, and then took Ross his key. And then, of course, we made several trips out here. It's hard to stay away from. It was just, it's magnificent. Timing is everything, and God owns time. He owns space. He owns everything. And you can try whatever you want to try, but it's got to be His will and His desire. He made this happen. It wasn't John. It was God. And it was the time. And like Ross said, it was woven into His plan. And so I'm going to turn this back over to Ross now, because I can't go much further. I'm going to start tearing up. So thank you for your time.
Ross, there were several requests that you could pan around.
Yeah, we're gonna take a walk around just so you can see in just a moment. One other thing to add to John's story, I said, because John talked to him, I didn't talk to him. I said, did you mention that we needed to put the internet? He said, yeah, actually I did. I told him we would, put the internet in. And so again, I'm thinking now we're in. I mean, John, he's got the keys coming. So in order to do what we do, to record audio, video, and have the mics, we have to have Wi-Fi. I mean, we don't, obviously. You're watching me now, but we want to. So I got on the phone with AT&T, and I can tell you, I talked to a lady by the name of Lauren, and Lauren was very helpful. In fact, she said, "So what are you doing?" And as I talked to her about United Israel and leading tours, I got her contact information. I think she's going to Israel with me. So Lauren, if you're working today or if you're listening today, remember, Friday, November the 1st, I need Wi-Fi put in this building. So next Friday, we have scheduled to put high-speed internet into Temple Sinai. We pray that that goes well. We are still working. Remember, like John said, we're doing this as it happens. You just have to deal with it where we're at. We're going to work everything we can to get the technology to where we need it. But let me tell you something. Moses didn't have Facebook Live or YouTube Live, so I think we'll be okay.
But
Now,
it would have been good.
what's that?
If he had, it would have been good.
Oh, it would have been high speed. That's right. If he would have, thanks. So we want to take you. Some of you have seen this place, but we want to show you a little bit about the place and pan it around and let you see just how beautiful it is. And so now we've got internet here coming this Friday, and we have Wi-Fi there. So United Israel is growing in this little town, and not even sure it was our idea to do so. Okay, so I'm going to take the camera and take you on a tour. Okay, so I'll start here. The organ is not from the original furniture. However, it's from the period. It was purchased so that we could get that feel for the original. Look at this. See the beautiful windows? What's that? Oh yeah, I'm getting there. Look at that. We have plenty of seats in here, as you can see. So James and others who are asking about the audio, it's not called echo, it's called perfect acoustics. So if you think that this is an echo, this is perfect acoustics. You've just thought of it wrong. Okay, look at this. All right, so let's go outside. You want to go outside and show them? Well, let's show them the modern part back here. Okay, so this was built by this architectural firm, and before it was really not a beautiful place, but we're coming in. Look at this, it's overgrown. So Dave and Sherry and John and Lyndon and I, we've got it. Look at this. Did you look out here?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, this is bad.
So we're going to make this beautiful.
It's amazing what you can do with a machete.
That's right.
Muscadines.
Oh, we can make some wine here for
I think
Shabbat.
that belongs to the neighbor.
Oh, well, we'll have to ask them. They might make some wine. So look at it, Dave. There's Dave. So we have here the Jews of Louisiana, New Orleans. This tells the story of the Freyhans, the people that had the vision, as I spoke of.
That's the muscadine sign, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Here's our kitchen here. We have a little bit of counter space. Of course, we have our place over there, so.
Coffee pot, that's important.
Coffee pot.
Yeah, we have a little coffee pot. That's right. All right, so let's go show the building out here.
We really won't mess with it if it's just a song. It'll be like a mirror,
Yeah, I was, just so you know, though, when we have technology, when we have everything set up, we'll be able to work on the audio. So we're going to clean this up and put back in here our mezuzah. This, by the way, is the original cornerstone for Temple Sinai. You can see that. Okay. Let me walk back. Now this, by the way, you'll see we have two stairways leading up on the front of the building. These are doors to nowhere.
You want to break the internet? If you show this phone,
Oh, yeah. See, it doesn't go anywhere. Are you watching this? Okay. Now, in the original, when the building was built, there was, as we understand it, a balcony that went across the top, obviously. Mm-hmm. Hello. Just going to walk you around and let you see a little bit. Built in 1901, Jewish synagogue on Turner Hill. Now, not very far from here is the Mississippi River, and so whenever I used to come up here and study on Friday nights, you can even hear sometimes the tugboats. Of course, we have beautiful oak trees surrounding the place. Give you an angle from the outside. And by the way, the building across the way that I'm now pointing at was the Julius Freyhan School. So not only did Julius Freyhan contribute towards the Jewish community, but this schoolhouse, which is quite interesting building, they're restoring that one next as soon as funding is made available. But this building was built for the public school system, so it's the Julius Freyhan School. Here is the back of the building. So I'm really excited that we're back here on Saturdays. And you can imagine we could host conferences here, and between using the building, our United Israel Center, and this place, we could have some really lovely conferences. So this is what we're talking about. We have to come in and clean up, and we'll do that. And I think it's going to help. You know, the city will be excited that we're coming in to help clean this place up and take care of it. See, this is just grown up. This is supposed to be a handicap ramp. Okay. So, you know, it's like every week I throw something new at Dave in terms of I want to go live from a tent, or I want to go live from the synagogue, or so I don't think anybody could keep up with the technological demands that I put on people. But we do have Wi-Fi coming in this week. So Friday, we have the Wi-Fi installed, and hopefully everything will be better. I wasn't wearing a lapel mic, which I normally would be. Even when we do that, there may be some of the, what you're calling an echo, because the building has such high ceilings and it's wooden floors, so I just don't know, but we'll see. So, from all of us here at Temple Sinai, have a beautiful Sabbath. We are not going to do, are you guys going to do anything over there? Or are you going to?
Just eat lunch.
Okay, so we're not going to do a dialogue today, but we will be back with you next week. So
I want to break the internet.
you're going to video me, videoing you?
This is you videoing me,
Okay.
and I'm showing you.
Let me wait till you pop up there and see.
It's going to take a while.
Okay. All right, guys. Have a beautiful Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom.